Hey guys, welcome to Collider Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Ashley Mova, and this is the daily show where we give you all the latest news from the world of movies, plus some insight into what it all means. Leading off the show today is Dennis N.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of Collider Movie Talk. No, your eyes aren't deceiving you. It is not Friday, but Christian and Mark are out today, so I'm guest filling in as host. I want to give a shout out to our graphics guy, Ray Aura. Happy birthday to you. He does
Happy birthday, Ray!
Happy birthday. He does all the great graphics on all of our shows, so hopefully he can come in. We can actually,
I know.
like he's been MIA
Where's that
lately.
guy been?
I know.
Also here, Perri Nemiroff.
Oh, hi. I'm here again. I'm going to try so hard not to giggle this entire episode because of these jokers over here.
Well, just don't say disgusting things, Perri.
I know.
It's okay.
Keep it PG, Perri.
PG.
Gosh.
You guys.
Trying to
Also
separate
here,
words.
John Rocha.
Hey guys, welcome. I know it's Monday. Once again, just like Dennis said, don't adjust your set. It is Monday. I am here on a Monday. I'm looking forward to it. Let's see what happens.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes, it's Monday, which means it's time for the weekend box office report, brought to you by our friends at AMC Theaters. Jason Bourne dominated the weekend box office, opening at number one with $60 million. The movie delivered its second largest domestic opening in the Bourne franchise, behind only the Bourne Ultimatum, which opened with $69.2 million back in 2007. Additionally, the debut is almost $22 million more than what the Bourne Legacy brought in back in 2012, when Universal attempted to keep the franchise alive with Jeremy Renner. At number two was Star Trek Beyond, dropping 60% in its second weekend with $24 million and pushing the third installment in the new franchise over $105 million. The other new release, Bad Moms, opened in at the number three spot with $23.4 million, along with an A cinema score from opening day audiences. The Secret Life of Pets took the number four spot with $18.2 million, bringing its domestic total to $297 million. Lights Out took the number five spot, adding $10.8 million to its $43 million domestic total. Dennis, thoughts on the $60 million domestic opening for Jason Bourne?
I think it's pretty good for the franchise. I actually thought it would go a little higher, like maybe mid to high 60s, but I think Universal will be very happy with this because it's a franchise that Ultimatum was a long time ago. I know they had Legacy, but this one is performing a lot better than that film, so that means that the franchise is still viable and that if they want to, they can make another film. As far as, I think the bigger story, though, is Star Trek. Star Trek dropping 60%. This is a franchise, when they brought JJ on and it had such a big opening for the first reboot, they thought, okay, the second one, maybe this will be even bigger, and it went down. Now this third one, and it's gone down again. This is a franchise that Paramount wanted to be their next Transformers because they make so much money off Transformers. They thought Star Trek was going to be the next big one for them, and it just doesn't seem to be catching on with casual fans. I saw the movie this weekend finally, and I enjoyed it, but I just feel like maybe there is kind of like this, like, okay, there's Star Wars and there's Star Trek, and maybe casual fans are like, well, look, I know I'm going to see Star Wars anyway. Maybe I'm not going to check out Star Trek. What do you think, Rocha?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a kind of dangerous sign for them, for the Star Trek franchise, because it's only making $105 million at this point on a $185 million budget. I always think it's dangerous when you're relying on international money to save your film and claim it's a hit. We always go domestically. It's always with these films that come out of here in the States, we want them to do well domestically and then go and just pad their coffers internationally, and it's dangerous. And you're right, it's the third consecutive down box office return for them. And I think because a lot of people are still upset about how JJ tried to fool them with the Khan reveal in Into Darkness. Star Trek fans are pretty avid fans. I'm a fan of it, and I went. And you're right, to me it was a glorified episode. So it's a nice installment, but bouncing off Into Darkness, you wanted something stronger, more interesting, more powerful, more resonant, and we have yet to see anything beyond the initial reboot that comes close to 2 or 6 or 4 from the original franchise. I will say with the Jason Bourne thing, it's interesting because it's $60 million, but when you adjust for inflation dollars, it's actually behind all the other Bourne openings except for Legacy. So that's kind of a little bit of a troubling sign. And the reviews haven't been that great. I went to see it. I enjoyed my time in the theater, but I understand the criticism with this franchise. And he's getting older, and I don't know how much more they can explore here. So for me, I think it's good, and all the signs, all the things that they're saying are positive. But it's a bit of a troubling sign. My big thing is Bad Moms. That's my huge surprise. I had no idea that thing would make. I thought it would make 13 or 10. So I would have lost box office on Friday. I would have put it like
which I got 5 out of 5, but no one here was actually on the show, so I can't.
So did it ever even happen?
Yeah, no, exactly.
Did that
Actually,
really fall?
all I did was I put Lights Out at number 5 because some people had put like Nerve and put a bunch of other movies there.
Yeah.
But I
Nerve
felt like,
didn't do too well. I think that was way below expectations.
Yeah.
But Bad Moms, I went to see it this weekend, and my theater was pretty crowded, and everyone was loving it. I think that a cinema score is a little high. I don't really think anyone's going to go in there and be like, oh, it deserved that grade. But I will tell you, I think it's one of those movies where word of mouth will catch on, and I didn't love it at the very beginning. In fact, I kind of despised the first act of the movie, but it's one of those things where when you spend more time with those characters, all of a sudden you start to laugh at the dumbest things and you grow attached to them. And by the end of it, I'm like, you know what? I can't hate this movie. So I think that one might actually hold on. Yeah. In regards to the other two, with the Bourne movie, now all I can picture is Donna Langley sitting in her house being like, I can make them make these movies forever, because of that quote where she's just like, I want Matt Damon and Paul Greengrass to be making Bourne movies until they can't do it anymore. And, I think this opening might get her at least her next one. But it's going to be curious to see what happens to Star Trek after this, because they announced the fourth one before this came out. And while I don't think they would pull the plug on it for this kind of opening, I can't imagine it getting that big of a budget the next time around. So I'm curious to see what their next play with this is.
Yeah, I think a lower budget and maybe they're bringing back Chris Hemsworth as Kirk's father. Maybe that's going to be the pull for it, but they definitely need to figure out something. But when you're talking about the international box office, it almost seems now like they want to at least like break even in the domestic and then try and make their profit in the international market, especially for something big like Star Trek Beyond.
Well, I think it's interesting with Bad Moms, again, with the 23. It's made for a $20 million budget. It already made $23 million, so it's going to pad it. So when you go international with Star Trek, the danger here and with other films is, do you start to cater like
Transformers?
Yes, Transformers, but Independence Day as well right? They put that Chinese actress in there to appeal to that market, to get that market. So the thing is, are we going to start seeing more studios do that more consistently now? Because they're starting to see as because maybe the international box office isn't as judgmental or critical as the American box office is, and so they may find that that's easier for them to make their money. It's a business. At the end of the day, art is great, but it's a business.
Well, I mean, Warcraft tanked here domestically, but they're considering a sequel because of how well it did in China.
I mean, Bruce Willis kept alive for so many years because of international box office,
All right, what's next?
It looks like Spider-Man Homecoming is shaping up to be an Avengers-type event movie of the season. We already know that Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man will be appearing in the movie. Now it appears that Black Widow may also be stopping by for a chat with the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. According to a report from comicbook.com, the outlet was tipped off to Scarlett Johansson's presence in the Atlanta area, where Spider-Man Homecoming is currently shooting. However, at the time, they were unable to confirm the reports. Now the Atlanta Filming Twitter account, which keeps tabs on all the filming dates and cast members, has posted a somewhat vague message that seems to confirm Johansson in the area. The tweet reads, well, hi Scarlett, what you doing here? The tweet does not offer any visual evidence, but combined with what comicbook.com was previously told, it seems feasible that Black Widow could appear in the movie, which debuts in theaters July 7, 2017. Perri, do you believe Black Widow could be a part of Spider-Man Homecoming?
I believe it could happen based on this one report. I most certainly do not think it's a guarantee. I mean, why, if she is there, normally when this happens, there's a billion photographers and reporters and people just scoping out the scene. How is there not more coverage of her being in the area? So I'm a little surprised that more people aren't reporting the same exact thing and corroborating this. And then we also have to consider that Marvel's home base is in Atlanta, and, she could be visiting someone there. She could be meeting with anyone for whatever reason. So definitely don't take this as a guarantee that she is going to be in Homecoming, but at the same time, I mean, plot-wise, yeah. And based on what Marvel does with putting characters in every other movie, I mean, it could totally make sense that she pops up. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind is, Tony Stark is in this movie, and maybe she's coming in to help train Peter Parker, something like that. So, I don't know. It could be possible. I most certainly am not getting carried away with this just yet, though.
Rocha?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. It'd be fun. They don't team up that often in the comics. I mean, they went a whole 30-year span where they didn't team up, and then they did something recently with Ultimate Marvel team up in issue 14 that was great. And so these characters can play off each other really well. It just depends how they're going to use her. I hope we don't have any kind of that weird Padme, Anakin sexual tension, forced sexual tension from the first Phantom Menace. Because there was that weird, creepy stuff at the end with Marissa Tomei and Tom Holland. That was a little weird and creepy at the end of Civil War.
I can't believe that's where your mind went.
Well, no, I'm just saying because I don't know how these things play out, right? They'll make these little jokes and then you're like, oh, okay, we'll keep going. So I just don't want any of that. But it could be that she's there to actually legitimately talk about a Black Widow movie, which people have been clamoring for since she appeared in Iron Man 2. So it's certainly possible that could be what's going on. But I wouldn't rule it out because we've seen it already a number of times. Other Avengers are now appearing in their other movies and their motive. I mean, Captain America: Civil War was basically Avengers 2.5. So why wouldn't other Avengers show up? And I think she's a good one to do because it's the other side of it. If you have someone cocky and very machismo like Stark can be sometimes, or misogynistic like Stark can be sometimes, maybe the counter is having someone like Black Widow to kind of counter the balance in the movie. It would be interesting. I would have preferred to see Captain America just because they had that awesome scene between each other in Civil War during the fight where they commiserated with being skinny kids who grew and had power from outside forces and then also from the 5 boroughs in New York. Like, that was such a great little moment in the battle that I wish they bring Captain America in to have some of that.
Yeah, I won't be surprised if Black Widow's in the movie, but you're right. They haven't shown any pictures yet, and also, is it her in her costume, or she's just making a cameo? So I'll give my thoughts, and I'll throw the question back to you guys. How big a role would you want her to be? Because I actually would prefer just more of a cameo situation. I don't want, like, she was great in Captain America: Winter Soldier as kind of like the sidekick to Captain America, but I feel like it's kind of come to that point where now she should just have her own solo movie. Like, stop sticking her in every movie as like a little cameo or side thing. So I just hope it's a little cameo versus like, okay, now she's like a main character in this thing. What do you guys think?
Based on how they're selling the movie so far, I am definitely hoping it's a smaller cameo because at this point, how much time have we spent talking about the other kids in the movie too? I want to see more of them, and the second you start throwing more Avengers in this thing, it veers off in a different direction. And when it comes to Spider-Man: Homecoming, I want a high school movie.
Yeah.
That's what I want. And I think by throwing more superheroes into the mix, we run the risk of veering too far away from that.
Yeah, I agree. A smaller cameo is better because you've already got Michael Keaton as the Vulture, or rumored as the Vulture. So that's going to take a lot of screen time in itself if you want to do that effectively. Plus, you're restarting this franchise, which has already sputtered out twice. And so you don't want to overload it right off the bat in the first film. You want to have a cameo, a couple of scenes maybe, establish a situation, a relationship, because I'm not sure where the time frame is on this. Is it after Civil War? If it is, then okay, what's the time frame here? What's the interaction based on what happened there? And then move forward from that. That just seems smarter because you want to establish himself very concretely as his own Spider-Man.
Okay. All right, Ashley, what's next?
We've still got some ways to go before the epic 2-film showdown known as Avengers Infinity War Part 1 and Avengers Infinity War Part 2. They've been slated for a May 4th, 2018 and a May 3rd, 2019 release respectively, and that hasn't changed in the slightest. What is new, however, is an official name change from Disney and Marvel Studios. Avengers Infinity War Part 1 will now be known simply as Avengers Infinity War. The follow-up a year later has now been temporarily titled Untitled Avengers Film. The temporary title proves interesting because it either means the studio heads have yet to agree on a title that will appeal to casual and hardcore comic book fans alike, or that a major event in the Marvel Cinematic Universe will be reflected in the eventual title, which could act as a spoiler if it was revealed too early. For now, fans will have to anxiously await the announcement of a new title, which could come after the release of the first movie on May 4th, 2018. John, what do you think of the new title for Avengers Infinity War?
I kind of feel like we're back to where we started in this whole process, when it initially was announced, it was untitled. These Marvel movies were untitled for this particular section. So now, then they made them part 1 and part 2 when they had that big announcement at El Capitan and they lined out everything, or they laid out everything. And I think this is the danger. And I felt that when I saw that, if you plan too far ahead, you're not factoring in creative differences, issues. Like Inhumans was already stopped. Like they stopped making Inhumans. So these things can happen, and it kind of ruins the momentum that you start. Star Wars is a separate thing because they've made it very clear what they're going to do. With Marvel, you have all these different characters that you're giving movies to, all these different groups of heroes that you're going to create, and I think it's a danger. And here we have the first evidence of the possibility of things shifting around, moving around, and it kind of ruins a little bit of the excitement that you have because you're like, okay, what does this mean? But this could be very logical in the long run if they actually don't want to spoil something and they've seen organically where the stories are going, how the audience is reacting to the characters, and what they want to explore more. So I'm okay with it. I just think this is sometimes the price you pay for planning too far out.
Maybe I'm just more cynical than you. I think this is a business marketing move. This is just purely I don't think anything's changing. I think the movies, whatever that Avenger, the Infinity Part 1 was going to be, and whatever Part 2 was going to be, are going to be exactly the same. All they did was see, hey, look, the last Hunger Games Part 2 didn't do as well as Part 1. It started with Harry Potter. You had the Part 1, Part 2 of Deathly Hallows. You had Twilight, had Part 1, Part 2 of whatever the hell was it, with Breaking Dawn or whatever the hell that is.
If you say so.
Yeah, and so it's one of those situations where they see like the audiences are getting tired of that because they see like, oh, Part 1, oh, I'm getting half of the story. Maybe I'll just watch it at home, Oh, Part 2, So I think they see that audiences don't like that, so they want to change. They're not going to change the movie or the story or anything. They just want to change the name so that it looks like this is Infinity War, this is a separate movie, and then whatever the other one, maybe they'll call it like, I don't know, Infinity whatever, some other thing that is still direct. I still think the Part 1 and Part 2 are still directly connected. I think it's just marketing. Perri?
Yeah, I am not reading into it quite like that. Just because the Russos said it. They said it in May. They said, we have these titles. It's misleading.
Yeah.
These aren't two movies where it's like one story playing out over the span of two different films. Yeah. They're two different things, and they flat out said they said we're going to change the title. We just haven't thought of anything yet. So when this news dropped, I'm kind of like, duh. I don't necessarily think it's a play for them to build some buzz out of nowhere or anything like that. But I'm just curious to see what the second title will be, and just, fantasizing how I'd like it all to play out at this point. I would find it really interesting if we got Avengers Infinity War, and then at the end of Avengers Infinity War, it's like, see you guys in Avengers, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And
you
find out that
you
way.
guys don't think it's going to tie into the next movie? I mean, like...
Oh, I'm sure.
Like, especially considering how much they've built up to this. I don't think that, at least personally, I don't think they should resolve this whole Infinity War thing in just one movie. I feel like two movies makes more sense.
I definitely don't think it's going to be a Part 1 and Part 2 quite like Hunger Games was, where that is one narrative broken up into two movies. I think that there's going to be obviously connective tissue moving from one to the next, but it's most certainly, based on the quotes that I've seen from the Russos, does not seem like it's going to be, you're going to get the first half of this epic mission that they're on, and you're not going to see the conclusion of that until the next one. I think whatever we get in the first movie is going to be a very satisfying conclusion with ties to what's to come in the next one.
Yeah, there's 6 stones they're trying to get, right? There's 6 stones they're trying to put that together. That's really important to remember. And so it's going to take some time to get those, put them together, and then see what the ramifications are, how that leads to what we're going to see in the first one, and then what we're going to see, how that bleeds out to who's going to, because there may be a whole new villain past Thanos that they want to play with that may go into the second one, maybe even Galactus. So who knows, right? So there's all these things. I don't know if they own Galactus, if Marvel owns Galactus, or if it's a Civil War, a Fox thing because of Fantastic Four, but there's certainly other villains that they can explore with the Infinity War.
See, I think it's going to be the opposite. I think they're going to show Thanos a little bit in Part 1,
really?
Part 1 or whatever, and then they're going to show him more in the second one.
Okay.
So they've been building it up for so long.
That's what I'm saying.
Really? They're going to bring him one movie, knock him out, and then that's it? I don't know.
Okay.
All right. What's next? Oh, actually, we're on to buy or sell. What's up first?
The Uncharted movie is still alive at Sony, with Variety now reporting that Joe Carnahan has come aboard the project as its new screenwriter, although he won't be directing due to scheduling conflicts with his Bad Boys 3, which is his next film. Carnahan told Variety he'd love to take a crack at directing the film, saying that in a perfect world, he'd do both. At this point, however, he is only on board to write the script. Uncharted has had a rocky history, with David O. Russell and Neil Berger previously attached to direct before falling out. Sony approached Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg to pen the script for the action-adventure film numerous times as well. Zero Dark 30 scribe Mark Boal was also brought in to touch up the script. Now it seems that Carnahan will start from scratch, with the film still targeting a release date of June 30th, 2017. Dennis, a buy or sell an Uncharted movie written by Joe Carnahan?
I'm gonna sell it, and nothing against Joe Carnahan. I mean, he wrote and directed The Gray, which I really liked. I didn't care for A-Team, which he also wrote and directed, but has nothing to do with him. I'm selling it just because I feel like there's been this musical chairs with this property in terms of the creative team. You gotta have all these writers and directors coming on board, leaving. It feels like kind of like, not as bad, but feels similar to the Crow reboot situation. It's just like, let's just nail down a director first, know what kind of script and tone this guy's gonna go for, and then build from there. Because what if he writes another script and it doesn't look like he's gonna be directing it, then they get a director in, maybe the director doesn't like that script. I don't know. I just feel like they should settle on a team first. Perri?
I guess I'm gonna buy it just because I like the idea of Carnahan writing this script, but at the same time, if I'm gonna place bets right now, I don't necessarily think this is gonna pan out, which would not make him look the greatest, because after this news dropped, he tweeted, "I promise I got this one." So, that's a big thing to tweet when how many writers and directors have cycled through this process. I was talking with Riley earlier. I wanted the Mark Boal version of this movie. He's the guy who wrote Zero Dark 30 and Hurt Locker. When that was the direction this was heading, I was super hyped about it. But at this point, there's only so many times you can swap talent before you kind of lose hope that it's ever going to happen at all.
Rocha?
Yeah, it's a great point, Perri, because you're swimming upstream already as a video game movie. These things don't pan out. They hardly ever pan out in a positive way. So if you keep changing directors, keep changing writers, it doesn't lead to good things. But in my opinion, I will buy this because I love Carnahan very much. I enjoyed The Gray like Dennis. I did like the A-Team. I own it, and I loved Narc. Narc is one of my quietly favorite films with Jason Patric and Ray Liotta that was fantastic. And so if he's going to bring that dirty, gritty vibe to this character and this property, which is a fun game. I have a bunch of friends who are addicts to this game, and I go over and spend hours watching them play the game. It's fascinating. I don't have the patience to play the game, but it's fascinating to watch other people play it. I know it's a very rich history, and but when you condense it down to the character of Nathan Drake, you want to have that adventurous feel to it, but still there's a darkness to him, and a darkness with the villain as well. And you're looking at El Dorado. There's so much to explore here. I think someone like Carnahan can do a good job with it. Boal would have been great as well. It's interesting that they're all over the place, though, and that's what makes me a little scared. So I buy it, but I'm going to keep the receipt, because it's like if they're going to jump around all over the place, like going from Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen to Mark Boal is just like, what are you doing? Like, what are we trying to make here?
Wasn't David O. Russell once
attached?
David
he was supposed to direct it, and he was going to get Mark Wahlberg to be Nathan Drake, which is not, at least in my opinion, not really.
The last thing in the world I can imagine is David O. Russell directing an Uncharted movie.
Yeah, didn't he direct him in I Heart Huckabees? That did not really turn out so well. So I think it's all going to be irrelevant if they don't cast the right person as Nathan Drake. People love this property, so if you don't cast the right person, I think it's irrelevant who's directing or writing, and that's what's really the number one thing in the end, I believe.
All right, what's next?
Back in 2012, the Fifth Element filmmaker Luc Besson took some flack for his sci-fi film Lockout, which he co-wrote and executive produced but didn't direct, with fans pointing out how similar the film's plot was to John Carpenter's 1981 classic Escape from New York. One person who also found the similarities too on the nose was Carpenter himself, who sued Besson in court over the alleged similarities. Now, according to Yahoo, the final ruling is in, and Besson has been ordered to pay $500,000 to Carpenter as a result of being found guilty of plagiarism. Lockout stars Guy Pearce and revolves around a man framed for a crime he didn't commit, who was offered his freedom in exchange for rescuing the president's daughter from a space jail overrun by criminals. The basic premise is indeed similar to Escape from New York, with judges pointing out that the heroes of both films get into the prison by flying in a glider space shuttle and confronting inmates led by a chief with a strange right arm. Besson is currently in post-production on his latest latest directorial effort, the sci-fi epic Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, which drew a positive response at Comic-Con 2016, where the first footage was unveiled. The film is slated for a release on July 21st, 2017. Perri, buy or sell the judge's ruling that Luc Besson plagiarized Escape from New York?
Feels weird to be buying or selling like a legal ruling. Am I going to go to prison if I don't buy this because it's laid out like that? I don't know, to be honest. I can't really comment on whether or not I think that ruling is accurate because I've seen both movies, but I saw Lockout once. To be completely honest, I don't remember a single thing about that movie except Guy Pearce is in it and what's her face from Lost. Yeah, Maggie Grace. That's pretty much the extent of my memory of that movie, so I don't really know, but it excites me that after all of this, at least he has something that is so insanely original, Valerian, coming out, because that footage at Comic-Con, I'll tell you, if you want something weird off the wall that we haven't seen before, that could be it. So I'm excited for him with that, but I mean, I'm not in a position to compare whether or not those two movies really do deserve this kind of ruling. However, it's probably interesting just to see if this opens the door to similar suits because, you know, it's art. Obviously, plagiarizing is very, very bad and no one should ever do it. But at the same time, you know, one piece of art is always influenced by another piece of art. So I'm just curious to see if we fall in a black hole of these kinds of situations now.
Well, I'm going to take a side, and I'm going to sell this ruling. I don't know if he plagiarized it or not. You know, there's definitely a lot of similarities to it, but I mean, you're talking about, you know, storytelling and in all different mediums. There's always people, mentioned people being influenced. I mean, there's lots of movies. We talk about the first Fast and the Furious was Point Break. Magnificent Seven is Seven Samurai. Fistful of Dollars is Yojimbo. Like, what else? The Avatar is Dances with Wolves. Hunger Games is Battle Royale. There's so many things that are like influenced or very similar to it. I just don't know the kind of precedence this sets. Like, okay, if he actually wins this, it's like people are going to be suing people left and right. Yeah. What about you, Rocha?
Yeah, I sell it because this means Tarantino doesn't have a career. So we can't have that because he borrows from all kinds of movies and puts those scenes in there, puts the music in there, even casts the same actors like Pam Grier. So it's certainly possible. I think it's kind of ridiculous because I saw Lockout. It didn't give me the same vibe as Escape from New York. Because Escape from New York is just grittier, right? It's just more like dirty. Whereas Lockout was more tongue in cheek. It knew what it was paying an homage to. So to me, it was interesting that this lawsuit even went through and was approved. Because you're right, Perri. What does this mean? We go into a black hole of suing each other. And if having a chief with a strange right arm is something you can copyright, then Mel Brooks should sue John Carpenter for what he did because he has that guy in Young Frankenstein, and that's 1974. So those things are kind of interesting to if you're going to find little similarities within films.
What about the little glider / space shuttle? I'm like, like you fly. Like a glider and a space shuttle are two different things there.
Completely different, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just a weird thing, and you're right. I don't know where we end up if we keep going down this path. You know.
All right, what's next?
With the Suicide Squad junket underway in New York, director David Ayer took to social media to answer some fan questions, and in the process dropped some news about the one-time possibility of a King Shark-equipped Suicide Squad. At the time, it was Killer Croc who almost sat this one out in favor of the King Shark character, who occasionally surfaces on the TV side of DC Entertainment, terrorizing the residents of Central City on The Flash. Here's what Ayer had to say. One of the characters for the squad lineup that I was actually thinking about was King Shark, but we realized it would take a lot of work, a lot of CG work. I wasn't quite comfortable having a full CG character. We actually ended up going with Killer Croc, who turned out to be the right guy for the job. Ayer also pretty much confirmed a post-credit scene encouraging fans to leave the theater very slowly. Suicide Squad opens this Friday, August 5th. John, buy or sell the idea of King Shark on the Suicide Squad?
I absolutely buy it because I love King Shark, but I don't know if it would have worked in this movie. Because the thing about this movie is they want to kind of go back to basics about them being all kind of human-based, whatever they are. It's very human-based, right? So you can connect to it, you can relate to it. If you had a King Shark, it would kind of take you out of it because it's such a fantastical character and a fun character. I think it would have been fun to have that in there and elevate the movie a little bit in that way to a little more fun. Because Croc, the way I forget the actor's name, the guy who played out of BC in Oz, who I love to death. Agabanya, I can't say his name.
He was in Lost as well.
Yeah, he was in Lost. Yes, Mr. Echo in Lost. He's doing great. It looks great that he's going to be fun with Killer Croc. But once again, it's makeup effect that's very like human based. You can touch it and feel it and understand it. Whereas King Shark would have been the way he's portrayed in the Flash TV show, and they have limited CG budget. He's this big hulking thing, and it just would have been weird. And like, what are they going to do? Like, how can it stay out of water? Like, do they have to worry about like this, all kinds of stuff that you factor in that you wouldn't
He's in
normally
a
factor
tornado. He's in a tornado.
Yeah.
That's how he travels by tornado.
Exactly. So it just would have been interesting to have that. I think it would have made it a more fantastical film, and I think that's not what they wanted to do. So although I buy the idea completely, I also am cool with it not being in there.
Yeah, I'm going to sell the idea. I just think for the same reasons, I think it would be too silly and over the top considering what kind of movie that we're trying to make. And Ayer even talked about having a full CG character, and in the Flash, like their budget, they barely showed him, right?
Yeah.
He came in for like 5 seconds and then took off. So I just don't see them doing that the entire time, and it just would look silly, I think. I mean, you're already kind of pushing the limits with Killer Croc for this style of film, and King Shark. I mean, even the name King Shark is just I don't know. I just find it very humorous. Perry.
King Shark versus Killer Croc, though.
Yeah.
I mean, does one sound sillier than the other to you?
The king, because he's like, what is he? The king of sharks? I don't know.
That's okay. I guess that's kind of fair. I mean, I sell the idea of including him in the squad as well. If you look at the trailers and all the footage that we've seen thus far, there's nothing in any of that footage that suggests that a CG character could exist in this world whatsoever. When we see the full feature, maybe there are a whole bunch of other CG elements that we're not aware of, and that would have made it possible to include a character like this. But at this point, based on what we've seen of the squad, Killer Croc's makeup not only looks good, but he looks real amongst the squad. So I am very happy with the decision they made, and good on them for not going the CG route.
I'm glad also to hear that there's a post-credit scene, though. I mean, I'm seeing it tomorrow. I think a bunch of us are seeing it tomorrow for the media screening, but a lot of these media screens, they don't show the post-credit scenes. They leave them off. And
wow.
Yeah. And so
I didn't know that.
I don't know if they'll have one or not. I may have to see it again over the weekend.
I actually know what the post-credit scene's about.
Okay.
It's Jared Leto. He's proposing to me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'll let you guys know. It's a little sneak peek.
In Ashley's dream.
In my dream.
Marry me. Yeah.
All right. In a new interview with Variety, Jeff Bridges was at a recent press event for his Hell or High Water movie, the neo-western that he stars in alongside Chris Pine and Ben Foster. Variety asked him about his opinion on John Turturro's comments about a movie based around his Jesus character from The Big Lebowski. Bridges said that Turturro's story was a great idea and that he would love to make a cameo in the film, but he also added his own idea for a sequel, one that centers on the Little Lebowski that Sam Elliott, the stranger, speaks of at the end of the film. Here's the exact quote. "I'm hoping they make a Little Lebowski sequel because it's all set up. I impregnated Maude. As the stranger says, there's a Little Lebowski on the way, Of course, this is all talk just for now, but it no doubt will get the fans of the original film talking, who for many years now have been imploring the Coen brothers to revisit The Big Lebowski with a sequel. Dennis, buy or sell a possible future sequel to The Big Lebowski."
I sell it. I'm not sure why you need a sequel. It just seems unnecessary. I don't know. I know people love the dude and they love The Big Lebowski.
What are you talking about, man?
I just don't. I don't know. And also, it being centered around the kid. I don't even see the dude like changing diapers and picking up his kids from school. I don't know. Just for me, it's just not something I'm interested in seeing. Perry?
Yeah, I'm gonna sell it as well, just because even though I've said it on a million shows here, anything can happen. Never say no, especially when it comes to a sequel. Same thing with Beetlejuice right now. We could say no right now, but then a couple years down the line, they want it. I think that could be the case here, but the Coen brothers have kind of turned this idea down quite a bit when they were talking to, when John Turturro first announced his idea, I think they simply said no, and that seems like a pretty straightforward answer to his request to make another movie. There were other quotes from him that suggest that he wouldn't make that movie unless they were open to it. Right. So I guess that's a positive step. But overall, this is an actor talking at a junket.
Yeah.
There's nothing in that quote that even says, it looks like it's possible. No, that's just an idea that came to his head. So I am going to sell this because I don't think this is happening at all.
Rocha,
Yeah, let me be the sane one on this panel.
Okay.
All right. It says, do you buy or sell a possible future sequel? Yes, absolutely. I buy it 2 pieces. I would buy it twice on Sundays. I love the Big Lebowski so much. I've seen it all over the world. No lie, I've seen it in 3 different countries. I love this film massively. And so the idea of a sequel, especially if you go the Jesus route, which was the standout character, what Turturro was able to do in basically 2 or 3 minutes of screen time to be this legendary character since is amazing. It would have been fun to explore him because he's such a weird little dude with the pedophilia, being a fantastic bowler, the accent, the jokes he's given in the movie is so much to explore here that challenges the audience. But it fits in the world of Lebowski. And then if you have a little Lebowski, that'd be awesome too, because how would Lebowski be as a dad? And I don't mean changing diapers. He'd have to be a little bit older, obviously, because it's 12 years later or however long later since the original film. So how would they work? And then you have Julianne Moore as the mom, who is this avant-garde theater, performance artist. It would be interesting to see Lebowski back together with her trying to co-parent this child. It would just be brilliant. And the sad is that you wouldn't be able to get Philip Seymour Hoffman back, which is a sad note. But I think there's so much comedy gold to be mined here that it breaks my heart that they're not forcing
to
a
me
sequel.
It sounds like some sort of like network sitcom version.
How dare you, sir?
Oh,
my God.
I just remember the Seventh Son junket because they're in that movie, and
right, they're both
all
in that movie.
anyone talked about was, "You think it's going to happen? You think?"
Right.
I think they
'Cause people
peddled
love the
around
film.
like a dozen quotes that
That's
junket
probably
about
because they
this,
didn't want to talk about that damn movie.
which is fair.
That's a terrible movie.
It really wasn't.
Yeah. All right, before we get on to mailbag, let's check in with Wendy. What are people talking about in the chat room?
Well, we're talking about the Black Widow possibly appearing in Homecoming. The majority of the chat would like to see Black Widow in Homecoming, especially since she's been in most of the breakout movies, and they're speculating that she's going to be spying on Peter, perhaps for Tony, but they don't expect her to be in the film very long, probably just a short cameo. Ken Wu 76 says, "Sure, I just hope we don't get another overcrowded crab fest like Spider-Man 3. And moving on to our Buy or Sell section, the Luc Besson story. Overall, the chat saying that if he really did this, if you do the crime, you got to do the time. But they're also comparing the many similarities in the films we've seen. Matthew Jasso says, yes, it's the same movie, but with this ruling, someone needs to go have the camera for plagiarizing Ferngully and Dances with Wolves with Avatar.
Yeah. All right, now we're on to mailbag. A reminder that you can email it at us, collidervideo@gmail.com. We'll answer your questions on our daily movie talk show or on our weekend mailbags. What do we got up?
Chat Room Goon writes, "Hey Collider fam, I love the channel and I'd like to say thank you for accepting my question. I was wondering, are there any movies that annoy you simply because they allude to a scene instead of showing it? 2 examples that really bug me are when Godzilla is battling the creature in Godzilla 2014 and it suddenly cuts to the news footage, and also in B vs. S when Batman is breaking into LexCorp on the security footage. Thanks again for taking my question."
For me, it's a movie that I love, which is Goonies, and it's something that's kind of bothered me since I was a kid, and it's kind of been more recently resolved. But in the movie, at the very end, if you haven't seen this movie yet, I'm sorry if this is a spoiler. After
30 years spoiler alert.
when all the kids get to the beach and they reunite with the parents, there's some reporters there and they're telling their parents about all the crazy stuff that happened, and Data says, "Oh, and the octopus was really scary." And there's no octopus scene whatsoever in the movie. So that always used to bother me. Is he making this up? And when you're a kid and you're watching movies, you don't know anything about deleted scenes or editing. You think movies are shot in order. You just, you think all these things. So it bothered me for a while. I was like, why is he talking about some scene I've never seen before? And I think there was a lot of movie urban legends, is this a real thing or not? And apparently it was. They actually released on the Blu-ray the actual deleted scene of the octopus happening.
There was a great Mondo poster.
Oh,
I think
was
it
it?
was Mondo, where they released a poster with the octopus in it, and I wanted that poster.
But it annoyed me so much as a kid. I was like, why is he a liar? He's a big fat liar, or are they just making this stuff up? I don't know. Perry, what about you?
I knew you had a good answer. The two of us, and I bet you anything by the time we started the show, you've come up with a good answer
Probably.
too, and I'm just sitting here by myself with nothing. The one random thing that came to my mind, which, it in no way makes the movie, not as great as it could have been, but I always, every single time I watch Scream, and I guess a spoiler warning for a movie that's now 20 years old, when the principal dies and they say, oh, he's gutted and hanging from the football post in the football field, I always just think, I'm surprised they didn't just shoot all those guys driving off and show him, Casey Becker style hanging. Not that would have made or broke the movie in any respect, but this kind of question gets my mind going with, implied violence and things like that, because with Blair Witch coming out now, I rewatched the Blair Witch Project, and that's a movie that really, to this day, blows my mind how scary it can be without really showing much of anything. Yeah. And then I was thinking about the surveillance footage because of the reference that this viewer made. And Vacancy is one that really gets me, how they show like the snuff films with the stabbing. I feel like because I saw it in the snuff, I'm doing the opposite of this question now. Because I saw the stabbing in that kind of context and not being in the scene, I think it was scarier. And one of my favorite examples of when they cut to news footage is in the movie Signs, where they cut to that footage of the alien just walking across during the kid's birthday party. Oh my God, still, that's another one to this day, every single time I see it, gives me chills. And if you would put that alien in the same way in a scene with the regular family, I don't think it would have been half as scary.
I think for me, it's all the Disney movies. We never know how the mom dies. Like, we never know what happens with the moms. There's always referred to it.
You're a sick person.
I'm just
I want to see the mom die.
You talk about sexual tension with Black Widow and Spider-Man. You talk about pedophilia with Jeets.
I'm not the one that approved it. The incest sitting on this panel on the Game of Thrones recap shows. My thing is the thing is that they're always referred to, but it's never like it's never shown some final deathbed scene, something where so you get the idea why the child is lost or why this character is still grieving over the death of the mom. Like, what is this? How did they establish their relation with the death?
So you want the kids to sit there and watch Bambi's mom's head get blown off? That's what you're telling me.
You don't have to necessarily show the head blown off, but you see the bullet going in. And the shock face. That's enough. I think that's enough.
Pretty sure it's an R-rated movie, man.
That's a great. No, but in Aladdin is a great point because you have this real sweet moment between Jasmine and her dad, and he says like, "Your mother would have been so proud," or "Your mother would have loved this moment." Like it's these sweet little.
Stop
moments.
ruining Aladdin! Why are you doing that?
So you want to like
25 years spoiler
sick on their deathbed?
No,
like
I don't know.
Like you're just digging yourself a deeper.
Maybe I am. I just think it's been a major complaint about the Disney films that they always kill off the moms, but they never tell you what happened to them.
Show them going through chemo. Just show
of course, the hair falling out.
Yeah, let's go through all of the.
Look, it's Up did it, so I'm sure it can be done in Disney films and work effectively. Up blows you to pieces within the first 10 minutes of the film.
Yeah, but they don't show her like hooked up to like a whatchamacallit.
Yes, they do. They show her in the hospital bed.
Yeah, but they don't like pull the plug on her.
Well, of course you don't need to go that far, dude.
Yeah.
There's a line.
There's a line. So Rocha, you have a line.
Okay.
So you have a line.
It's a Disney film for kids. Of course, there's a line.
Sure. All right. Anyways,
let's
move on to live Twitter questions. You can tweet us at Collider Video. Please do not set up Rocha for more dark, disturbing questions for him to answer.
All right, Cole Fisher writes, what are the consequences if Suicide Squad sucks?
Oh, boy.
What a great question.
I was so surprised this wasn't a mailbag question today.
Oh, man. Accusation. Look, I haven't seen the movie yet. But if I happen to not like it, or maybe the rest of us happen to not like it, we are going to hear. The thing is we can't not tell the truth. We have to give our honest opinion. So if we don't like it, we don't like it. That's just going to happen.
Yeah.
But if it does happen, oh my God, the swell of you're paid off by Marvel. Everyone's biased against DC. You guys are terrible. Like all these things that are come in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I said, we have to say our honest opinion.
If I don't like it, I am going to be extremely, extremely disappointed. It was one of my most anticipated movies of the summer and of the year. Yeah. If I don't like it at the same time, it's not going to diminish any of my excitement for Justice League and Wonder Woman, because those two movies look fantastic, and I will keep looking forward to those.
Rocha?
I would be despondent beyond despondent because I wanted Batman vs. Superman to be so good, and it didn't quite get it there for me. And then Killing Joke, I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but I was really underwhelmed by that adaptation, and I saw it at Comic-Con, was really underwhelmed, and I witnessed the panel breakdown that happened later between Azzarello and some of the people in the audience. Like it was, so this would be another like building wave of negativity for DC, and it would just not have people not let people have confidence for Justice League and Wonder Woman. I wasn't as impressed with Justice League. I thought it was a bit of a mishmash of stuff. There are moments that were great in the trailer or the footage because it wasn't an official trailer, I think.
Yeah, I think
footage.
that's why.
Right,
I gave it more of a pass, and I really liked the footage because that it wasn't an actual trailer. They said it's Comic-Con. It was actually labeled Comic-Con special footage versus an actual trailer.
The Aquaman stuff was great when Ben Affleck comes and lands as Batman and says, I'm real for when I need to be, or whatever he says. That was a great moment. Those are great moments, but I think some other the moments don't work. And in Wonder Woman, I wasn't 100%, but that's my own thing.
What?
That's my own thing with Gal Gadot. That's my own thing with Gal Gadot. Everything else without her is fun in the trailer, but I'm just not 100% there with her. I like Brie Larson's Captain Marvel. That's a great choice, but just for me, I'm not 100% there with Gal Gadot. But it's nothing. I'm sure it's going to be great. I'm sure people are going to love it. I don't want to get destroyed. Please don't kill me. It's just a personal opinion. But yeah. So I think it would be really dangerous if this thing falls apart, because then it'll be just like, what hope do people have that Justice League or Wonder Woman is going to be good? Because it's the same people who made these first three things, kind of. So
yeah, but I think Suicide Squad, though, it was made pre-Batman v Superman reaction.
Yes.
So,
but they did do the reshoots.
They did, but I mean, reshoots can only do so much.
Right.
So I feel like maybe Wonder Woman and Justice League is going to be a different turn. They've already, I mean, you've seen the trailers. There's a lot. You notice a lot more humor in there.
Yes.
It seems like a different direction for
We're
DC.
also talking about movies made by very different filmmakers.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, these aren't people who are just going to take a back seat and completely be pushed around. They're obviously going to have to adhere to certain things that the higher ups need out of these movies. But at the same time, I think part of the reason I like that Wonder Woman trailer so much is because it felt like her movie.
Yeah.
It had its own, it had a unique tone to it, and I'm all for that.
And Patty did a really good job on the panel explaining that and talking about it and like really making it very clear that it is her movie and like almost separate from the universe in a way. And that I think that's a positive, absolutely. Yeah. But Justice League is still Snyder, so
But they put Jack White in the back of that trailer,
so
I am in.
All right, let's do one more.
Okay. Kind of an expansion question on one of our main topics. Drew Yepsen writes, do you have any concerns about Spider-Man Homecoming being too overflown with big actors, actresses?
No, as long as they make sure that I think the characters don't get too muddled in there in terms of like, that's why I don't want to see Black Widow as a major role in the film if she does appear in it. I hope even Tony Stark as Iron Man is more of like a cameo and appearance. I don't want any of those, especially because this is supposed to be a high school story.
Yeah.
Like I want it to mainly focus on Peter Parker and then his group of friends.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same thing I said before. The only concern with Black Widow is I don't want it taking attention away from Peter Parker and his friends. But at the same time, I guess logically it would make sense for other Avengers to have somewhat of an influence, because I believe it is taking place after the events of Civil War.
Yeah.
So they would know each other. And, if part of Tony Stark's involvement is being a mentor, obviously he'd call on his other very skilled friends to swoop in and help out a little.
Yeah, it would be interesting color to add to this franchise now, because you'd have younger superheroes coming in, being mentored by these people that we have seen start out their process as see their origin stories, so we could see what they're referencing, what they're using as advice material for the younger superheroes. And I think it would be a nice little color. It would enrich the other superheroes in a human way, so that we could see how and that's one thing Marvel does really well, is give a lot of layers and richness to the humanity of the characters. The fact that they're superheroes is nice, but what we care about is who they are as people, and that's what makes us enjoy them as superheroes. And so I think that would be very interesting to see if they could pull that off deftly and correctly, so that they're almost advising kids in the audience or teenagers in the audience as well. And that's what comics has always done through the years, is influence you, at least for me, I can speak for me, influences you about good and evil and the right thing to do in certain situations. And it's not always an easy tact, and sometimes you lose even when you're trying to do the right thing. So.
Yeah. Well, you redeemed yourself from your other previous
You are
comments.
forgiven.
But mom deaths always.
We're back.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us on today's episode. I want to thank people joining us at the table. Perri, where can people find you?
You guys can catch me on Twitter and Instagram at P. Nemiroff, on Collider Nightmares every Tuesday, and Best of the Week every Saturday.
And Rocha, where can people find you?
Hey guys, you can always find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. Every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, the Top 10 show here on the Collider Network, which is so much fun to do with Matt Nost. We just did, Top 10 actor-director combinations.
Yes.
And we've got a really special one coming up on Wednesday in honor of Suicide Squad. It's the Top 10 superhero villains. So we're going to be talking about that. And also, guys, if you could patronize the new podcast that I've been doing for the last few weeks now called The Cinephiles. It's on iTunes, Cine-FILES, and we talk about one classic movie before the year 2000 with a film professor friend of mine here in Los Angeles and break down the production history and the legacy of the film. And the last two we've done is High Noon, and we just released Planet of the Apes this past Friday, which was a blast to record.
And Ashley, where can people find you?
Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat at Ashley Mova. Happy Monday, guys.
And Wendy, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at Wendy Lee Zaney.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at ThinkHero, on Instagram, Dennis.tzng. You'll find me here on Movie Talk Mondays and Fridays, and then on Saturday on Mailbags. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Collider Videos. And TV Talk. We got TV Talk later today at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So be on the lookout for that, and we'll see you guys later.
Hey guys, if you like this video, click the thumbs up button. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It'll help you stay up to date with everything we've got going on here at Collider.